Hey, well, good afternoon, guys. It's Nathaniel Kuchenberg back with y'all today. And first of all, you might be wondering why I'm live streaming on this channel opposed to my other channel. And it's totally due to technical difficulties on my channel, which I just renamed a title of Never Ending Adventures and Vlogs. And that it got flagged for some reason. I have no idea why. I take it as a spiritual attack because it's crazy. I don't have anything inappropriate. I don't have any. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm not, nothing that should have been flagged. But I think it's a spiritual battle. So, anyways, I'm live streaming on this channel, and we're going to be going to the origin of the Book of Revelation and seeing if there's any Hebrew original. So that's that for you. We're going to be looking at a manuscript today that is somewhere in the general vicinity of about 500 years old. And I haven't found really any information on the date, who penned it, or even where it was copied from. And because we don't know this, there's a lot of assumptions that we could make, and there's a lot of theories we could make too. There's assumptions as to where the origin could have come from, but I don't want to just assume it has to be one way or another. I want to make a few theories, a few ideas that I have been thinking about, and leave it up to the audience what your opinion is. And as of right now, there is no definite proof that the Book of Revelation had been, originally written in Hebrew. But today, we're just going to dive into the text, and what we're looking at is, it's called Sloan. It's Sloan's Collection, and it's number 237. Sloan's Collection 237. I'm going to put a link there. I'm going to turn around my camera. I'm going to show it on the screen. This, my friends, it says up here that it's a translation, a Hebrew translation of the Revelation of John. And of course they assumed that when they documented this, because of course they assumed, well, it can't be an original because it's in Hebrew. But the question I have is whether or not that idea of it being a translation, that assumption that the people assumed, was actually correct. Was this actually a translation of the Greek or Latin, or was this a scribe that copied another manuscript that dated back even earlier and even wasn't complete, perhaps, and that he copied this to preserve this other manuscript that we don't even know about anymore today? And that's what we're going to be thinking. The date here says 1500 to 1699, and that's another thing that we don't know the date. Some people say this could have been, it could have been as early as 1500, could have been as late as 1699. We do not know. There's a lot that we do not know. But what we're going to be looking at is, for one, Chazon Yochanan HaKodesh. It says the revelation of John, the Saint John, and here it does use his Hebrew name Yochanan. But I mean, of course, if they translated this from the Greek, they could have translated it from Saint John to Yochanan. But this is what's so strange, is when it starts it out, it says Chazon Yoshua Mashiach Shenatato Elohim, and it says that it's the revelation of Yeshua, Yehoshua Mashiach, that he gave, that Elohim had given to him. And this is what is sort of strange, because a lot of times, if they're trying to strictly translate it from the Greek, they might or might not have put the name Yehoshua. Of course, people do know, they're familiar that Yehoshua was the name of Jesus. So at the same time, this is not proof that it was not a translation. But let me go on. So this manuscript starts in Revelation chapter 1, and you can see here, let me zoom out a little bit, the complete page. And then I got the next page. Got the next page. Goes on for, I think it's 7 pages. And then when it gets to the phrase, sitting in the seat of Satan, it just stops. It's Revelation chapter 2, verse 12. And oh no, actually, hold on. This is 13a. The beginning it says, "I know where you are in the throne of Satan," and it just stops. And it is kind of odd that it just stops right there, because then you keep going on to the next page, and it's just blank. Okay, folios. And it looks like that was purposely the end, that's just where it stops, and you keep, oh, hold on. Yeah, you keep going further, and this whole thing is blank. You got about, I think it's like 20 or 40 pages of this text, blank paper. Meaning that whoever penned this, whoever scribed this, was not intending to translate the entire book of Revelation. Whatever he was doing, and maybe this is his name, I don't know, but whatever he was doing, he, this guy was not intending to translate. He was intending to copy and paste to his own personal collection. And that's what I want you to get from it, that he was just copying and pasting this text. And in doing so, he preserved a copy. So I want to make sure people are clear that I'm not saying that this is an original of any sort. This is a copy, a handwritten copy in the 500s. But what was the thing that he was copying? Was he copying an older version of the book of Revelation in Hebrew, which I assume he had to have been, which is what makes it interesting. So if you go to the second chapter, I'm going to turn the screen around again to show you guys that go to the second chapter. It actually says, not second chapter, the second page, which is also sort of really unique. In the second, it actually says, okay, here. It says, Ani ha'alef ve'hatav omer Yehovah ha'Elohim. Yehovah ha'Elohim. This makes me wonder where the origin was. Because if this was an Orthodox Jew, he would have never penned it Yehovah ha'Elohim. First of all, if it was an Orthodox Jew, he wouldn't be writing Revelation anyways. Why is he putting it in Hebrew? And if it's say this is a Catholic, there's no use for a Catholic to be putting this in Hebrew. I mean, unless it's academically somehow something academic. Just try to put it in Hebrew. You never know. That long ago, but it says Aleph ve'atav, on the Aleph, the Tav. Greek says Alpha and Omega. Here it's clearly Aleph and Tav. Amer Yehovah, Yehovah ha'Elohim. I think this is very, very interesting, because we have this text that clearly says Yehoshua. It's saying Jehovah, and it's very literal. And the thing that I like about this, unlike the Hebrew Matthew of Shem Tov's text, this actually does almost pair up to the Greek. There is one thing that when it says the 7 spirits of God, you would think that anybody, if they're translating it from Greek, and they see the word pneumaton, heptapneumaton, spirits, they would have translated it as ruach in Hebrew, but no, it's here. It's Nishamot. It's Nishamot, which is like the beings or like the living breaths. And it just doesn't seem. What's strange is it doesn't seem that this is a translation of the Greek or Latin. But on the other hand, because if you take the Greek, you're gonna translate that as the word ruach. But the other way around, if you see the word neshamot, there's not really a Greek word that would be equivalent, so you probably translate it as pneumaton. The same when it says she neged hakiso, it means it's right in front of his chair, right in front of his chair, right in front of his throne. And here it says ha enopion tuthronomoto, and you really think this enopion, if you're translating enopion into Hebrew, you're gonna put lifnei. Lifnei is before or in front of. I don't know. I mean, if it's trying to spice up the translation or what exactly you'd be doing, because sheneged, or sorry, neged, sheneged, literally is just like opposite. You're right in front of me, and it's not as common of a word for everyday language. Everyone is, you would say modern Hebrew or ancient Hebrew. It seems like, especially translating to Greek, you're gonna translate it as lifnei. So this really seems strange that the vocabulary is quite unique. But it definitely says the same thing as it does in Greek. But you got to think that even though it might be saying something very, very much on the same line of the Greek, the Hebrew, to me, and I read this whole thing yesterday in the Hebrew, start to finish, the whole Hebrew text, and I compared it to the Greek, see what's different, and it just surprised me that the Greek, it seems a lot more difficult to understand in the Greek. There's a lot, a lot of grammatical mistakes. If you look at it in the Greek language, the Greek is not actually written in proper Greek. People think it's almost like an apocalyptic kind of Greek that is, the Apostle John's own kind of Greek. And that makes people wonder, was this a Greek translation of a Hebrew? And that's why this was not written in proper Greek, but it was just translated. So if you know Greek, you can read it and understand what the Apostle Yochanan was trying to say. So for an ending note, we don't know the origins of this text, but some ending questions are these. We got a text that's 500 years old, and it definitely seems that this was okay, let's start. It's not a translation. It was a transference of this older text that only had, it must have been a fragment because it only had from Revelation 1:1 to Revelation 2:12. Because he stopped there, he didn't intend to go further. He had more pages he could have penned. That's all he penned. He was not translating, and that seems to be clear from the text that this text, whoever wrote this, was not translating, but was copying and pasting from an ancient source. And where he got this ancient source from, we don't know. So, say that his book that he had copied, say he ran to a library and he saw this book, and that this book was a few hundred years old. Say this book was 500 years old. It was, so and so's library, so and so's house. If it was a personal collection, and say that this book was 500 years old at the time that it was copied from. Then you add this together, and the original manuscript of this potentially could have been from 1,000 years ago, could have been from 1500 years ago, what this was copied off of. That's why I take this more serious than I ever thought before, because I see the importance of it, that this is a copy of a copy, and even a copy of a copy of a copy, dating back to the book of John. And I think it's important to do further research, to really wait and see what God reveals in the future, because I think that with the Messianic movement, the Hebrew roots movement being really strong in this latter day period, I feel that it'll be necessary that God reveals more manuscripts. And that's a prayer of mine, that God reveals more manuscripts, the original book of Revelation in Hebrew, the book of, if he wrote Revelation, he most likely wrote John, and even the entire New Testament possibly was originally written in Hebrew, but it's been covered up, it's been hidden away, and it shall be revealed in the future. And until then, I'm Nathaniel Kuchenberg. Thank you for watching. Shalom. Yitro.